Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. I'm here with our regular family of seekers. We meet here every Monday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to read through the Gita together, to read through the Gita and to talk about its relevance in our lives. That's what we're doing here. We like to say we're walking each other home because we read these texts, we really go deep into these texts, and we try to imbibe these texts in our daily lives. So that's what we're doing. Today we're starting with chapter 9, text 26. That's where we are. Chapter 9, text 26. And it's a really beautiful verse, a very popular verse that most of you have probably heard before. And we'll really dive deep in it today and discuss it. So before we do that, Shakti, can you lead us in our prayers?
Yes, I'd be honored. Om Agyana Timarandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Shapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kara Mayam Tatatisva Pandatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakans Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Garungi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavembhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Arugur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. All right, let's get right into it. I will share this on my screen. And Stella, when you're ready, can you read the verse for us?
Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti apatram hasnami praya atmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it.
Thank you. So this verse is we in the last class, remember we talked a lot about demigods and kind of that level of God realization, recognizing that there's some order to the world, there's some control, and in that kind of developing a relationship with these demigods and kind of the idea behind when people approach demigods is that they have some kind of material desire that and they're seeking out a certain demigod or the post responsible for that area, this managerial post, right, that's responsible for that area to kind of fulfill that order for them. And so now we're kind of walking through these different God realizations, right? And that is a level of God realization. But now we're coming to this verse, and this is a pure bhakti verse, and that's why it's really beautiful and heartwarming to kind of discuss and get into, because this is what chapter 9 is kind of taking us through, this progression of different levels of God realization. And we know that just showing up for God, for the supreme absolute truth, with only the intention of love, with only the intention of wanting to give love, right? Wanting to serve God. You have no other desires, right? That's really like, that's the highest level of God realization and relationship, as we talked about in the last class. And that's where the Gita is trying to take us. And so it meets us where we're at, and so that we can make gradual progress. And there's nothing wrong with that. Wherever we're at is great. But it's showing us too really where this is all going, really where we all want to go. So this verse is all about what actually matters to God. And it's just so sweet, because we know God's not actually, he's not hungry. He doesn't need to eat. He's not poor. He doesn't need anything from us. But what he's responding to here is devotion. And that's what he's really looking for from us. And Prabhupada explains that there's two essential ingredients here. There's two essential ingredients that Krishna's looking for us to approach him with. And that is love, devotion, the mood of devotion, and a pure heart. And a pure heart. And the item itself, what we're actually offering to God here, is secondary. It's more like a vehicle for this love and a pure heart. And if you notice here, Krishna doesn't say, offer me gold. He doesn't say, offer me something expensive. He says, offer me a leaf, offer me a flower, offer me a fruit, offer me water. And why does he say these things? He says these things because anybody can offer them. You don't have to have a lot of resources or means to have access to these things. Anybody can offer them. And in that way, Krishna is making devotion accessible to everyone, whether you're rich or poor or educated or uneducated. And it's such a sweet thing. There's no prerequisite for approaching God. It just a pure heart and a sincere desire, love in that heart. There's a really beautiful story that I know many of you have probably heard, but I want to share it anyway. And when I read this time, in the context of this, it kind of hit me even like a little bit deeper. So maybe it'll have the same effect for you. But this is before the battle. So this, the Gita's takes place on a battlefield. So if you kind of rewind, before all this happened, Krishna went to Hastinapur as a peace messenger. And at that time, Duryodhana invited Krishna to his palace and offered him a very opulent feast. And if we rewind way before the battle, Duryodhana and Arjuna, they were trying to decide whose side Krishna was going to be on. We remembered. So there was kind of that. If we remember the story where they both approached Krishna, and Krishna offered them his army or him. Duryodhana was really into his army. It was represented like material opulence, and Arjuna was just wanted Krishna. Right? So that's kind of like a backdrop. But here's another story that kind of takes place around that same time before the battle. So at the time, Duryodhana, he invited Krishna to his palace and he'd offered him a very opulent feast. And Duryodhana, he was wealthy, he was powerful, he had every arrangement. And the feast was beautiful. Like you think about all of your favorite things, and it was just super opulent, really nice. But Krishna refused. He said he didn't accept the food just because it was opulent. He wanted to see love and affection. And he said that Duryodhana didn't have love for Krishna's devotees. And so therefore Krishna wouldn't accept his offering. So instead, Krishna went to the house of Vidura. Now Vidura, he was not wealthy. His home was very simple, but he was a very great devotee. And at the time, Vidura wasn't home, and so only his wife was there. And when she saw Krishna enter the house, she became completely overwhelmed with devotion. And she wanted to offer him something immediately. And she just had bananas. She just had bananas. And in her ecstatic absorption, she was so excited. If you ever get like so emotional that you're like just aren't really thinking clearly because you're just kind of like, whoa. She began peeling the bananas, and throwing away the banana and then offering Krishna the peel without even realizing what she was doing. So she was just giving Krishna all these banana peels. And Krishna was eating them. He was eating them very happily. He wasn't even saying anything. So he did that. He ate. He left. Later, when Vidura returned, he saw these banana peels, or he saw these bananas scattered all around. And they were completely untouched. These bananas. So he understood what had happened. And the point here is that we should all take note of. Krishna rejected a royal feast prepared without devotion, but he accepted banana peels offered with love. So this story just really emphasizes that the consciousness behind what we're doing, what we're offering, is what Krishna sees. And what we're actually offering is merely a vehicle for that. Because Krishna is conquered by devotion. So he's not looking at the external thing. And this doesn't mean that if someone has a lot of wealth, that they should just offer things carelessly. Like, I have all these means, all these resources, but Krishna accepts something very small, so I'm just going to offer him that. No, if we have more, we should offer the best that we can because love naturally wants to give its best. When you really love someone, you want to give the best. It's not you don't just like I really love someone, but I'm gonna just get by with what I can offer. Like I think of my child, I really love my child. I want to give her breast milk as long as I can. That's just like that's the way that I feel, even if it's an inconvenience to me. Even though that I know, she's over one, she doesn't really need it anymore technically, but it's still super beneficial. So I want to do it as long as I can. Now, this is what happens when you love someone, you naturally want to give the best. So when we love Krishna, we should naturally want to give him our best, the best quality things that we have, our full attention. We want to make time in our schedule so that we can give him fully focused time. When we do service for Krishna, we want it to be we are giving it our all, because this is how love manifests. And when someone's in love, they're willing to sacrifice their own comforts for the Lord's pleasure, and they don't even think twice. Again, we all have experienced that. When we're really in love, you don't even think twice about sacrificing your own comforts. Sometimes my husband and I will walk around the block and it's really cold and I didn't bring a coat like I should have, or he notices that Prema's cold and he'll take off his coat and give it to Prema and he'll be like in a t-shirt, he'll be like in a t-shirt, but he doesn't even care. I'm like, are you sure? You don't? No, it's fine. And he'll say, oh, no, I'm actually hot. He'll even like lie about how he actually is because he just wants to sacrifice his own comfort for the person that you love. So this is what Krishna's looking for. If we're really in love, we're willing to do that. But he tells us, he sets the bar low by saying, if you don't have access to these things, if you don't, whatever you have, just offer me with love. If you don't have much, don't worry. I'll still accept it if it's made with devotion. So this is the mercy of this verse. This is the mercy of this verse. And it's really easy to look. I like this point a lot. I want to have a little bit of discussion around this because I think this will kind of like bring some bells will be going off with people. I'm hoping that bells came off with me when I was reading this. So it's easy to look at God's greatness and immediately start asking for things. This is kind of the trap that a lot of spiritualists or seekers or religious people fall into. It's kind of default. You see God's power, protection, abundance. And you think, okay, oh, he's so powerful. He protects us. He has everything. Like, what can I get from that? What can I get from that? But Krishna's pointing us towards something much deeper here. He's not just asking us to like him. He's inviting us to love him. And I want to go in and talk a little bit about the difference between like and love. Because liking is about taking, love is about giving. So when you like someone or something, your mentality is more around what do I get out of this? How do I feel happy, or how do I get sense gratification from this? When you love someone, the mentality is more, how can I serve? So this liking is driven by gratification. That's when you like something. I think of my husband loves Taylor Swift, which I like Taylor Swift too. She's is very catchy. But so many of her songs are just all on this platform of just liking, looking for the next hit, looking for the next high of like a level of sense gratification. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but we should understand the difference between liking and loving, because liking is driven by that sense gratification, and loving is driven by sacrifice. Love is rooted in sacrifice. And I heard this analogy that I really liked. This a spiritual teacher was explaining, the difference between these things. And he pointed to a flower and he said, if you like the flower, you'll pick it, you'll smell it, you'll enjoy it, and you'll move on. But if you love the flower, you'll water it, you'll protect it, and you'll help it grow.
Yeah.
I can like the
So
flower without.
Yeah. But
Oh, yeah, I'm just. No, go ahead. No,
okay, do you have something to share? Do you want to share with us?
no. Finish your thought,
You want to
please.
collect? Okay, collect and then share with us. So this line is really, it says a lot here. Love, it's not about consumption. It's about care. And again, it's not saying that there's something wrong with liking. It's part of our nature. But understand the difference and understand that Krishna's calling us to love him. And that's what we really want to get out of this verse, is Krishna's calling us to love him. And love doesn't always start as a feeling. Oftentimes love develops through action. I think of a teacher that I have that was talking to a couple, and the wife was like, I'm just not in love with him anymore. And the teacher was like, so love them. So, and they're like, I'm just not like, it's like we so expect love to just be like this, just butterflies and fireworks and we all, I mean, many of us, have experienced long-term relationships, or you come to realize that love takes effort. It takes sacrifice. It takes showing up. It's not always just like this blissed out, exciting thing. It's developed through action. It's developed through service. So this is what Krishna's kind of helping us to redefine maybe what we're kind of imprinted by Hollywood, the definition of love. And when we focus on giving and serving and sacrificing in any relationship, even when we don't feel like overflowing love yet, something is shifting. Because when you give to someone consistently, you're investing a piece of your heart in them. And then once your heart's invested, it's like, how can you not begin to love? Then you're connected. And this is what the Gita calls bhakti. And when that love is directed towards God, it becomes bhakti yoga. And that's the essence of the Gita's message. Bhakti yoga, it's not a religious transaction. It's not, I'll do this, God will give me that. It's a loving offering that's meant to awaken a deep, pure love that already exists within us, even if it's been dormant for a long time. And at first the practices, they might seem simple, maybe even more mechanical, but when they're done with sincerity, over and over, they quietly combine everything that the other yogas are trying to accomplish, discipline, awareness, detachment, and love into one like living process. And this is when something starts to awaken inside of us. We're so used to loving people because we need them. But this kind of love, it comes with fear, fear of loss, fear of disappointment. But bhakti is teaching us to flip that around. When we reach the point where we need someone because we love them, right? We need someone because we love them. We want to give our love to them, not the other way around. This is when devotion becomes pure. And at this point, that love, it doesn't need a reward. The love itself just becomes the reward. So it's a really tall order. But Krishna's opening our hearts to this and telling us it's available for us in relationship with him. Kind of amazing, right? Shakti or Stella. Let's do Stella first and then Shakti.
Go, Stella.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Um, yeah, I was just yeah, it's just word choice. It's like it's the flower analogy. Like I feel like you could like a flower and consider its welfare without picking it. But it's whether it's laced with lust, like
Yeah.
wanting to enjoy it on your terms without consideration of its terms. Like what's best really for the flower is to not be picked in
Yes.
some way. So yeah, that's so yeah, I think, someone could say, well, I do like flowers and I don't pick them. I think that's more like a like with consideration as opposed to I like this flower. I'm gonna take it with me and and
Y-
use it to my own thing. That's another kind of liking. Anyway, it's just semantics. We're English people, like like we just
Yeah.
okay, but what you
Yeah,
said
no.
was all, correct and wonderful. I was just thinking there's two kinds of liking. There's the lust flavored and the considerate flavored kind of liking.
Sure. I totally appreciate your English teacher feedback. And maybe even like we don't even have to use the word liking. We can more just think this progression of consciousness and kind of lower than love would be more of this mentality that I want to enjoy and that everything is for my enjoyment without so much consideration of the needs of what's around me, the environment, the people. And then when we really love, we're more concerned with their needs. And that's a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of consciousness in relationship with the world around us, with people, with God. Yeah.
Bible.
Thank you.
Shakti.
Shakti.
Um, this this um there's two things I think of is that I remember when I was practicing bhakti for a while, but I would say, like I had said to like one of my teachers, like how to, I don't know if Krishna knows, like that. I love him, and then I'm offering to him, and he said, uh, Krishna knows your intention. Whatever, if your intention is love and for him, whatever it is that you're doing, even if it's, you're cleaning up or you're putting a bolster down for maybe your guru to sit on, Krishna knows your intention. He
Mm.
already knows what's going on in my thought process. So if I'm thinking like, all right, I am going to set up this room and I'm going to put all the bolsters out, and then everyone's going to come in and be like, "Wow, Stacy, that's so great." They're going to know that intention, and that's not the intention that I want, right? Because then
Mm,
that's really bringing the attention to me, and it's not about me.
mm,
But if I'm doing it with the love in my heart and I'm thinking like I really want to serve and I really want people, to be, offer this with love. Krishna knows that, right? So he knows both. And one of the things that I remember, it seems very small, but it's big in the thought, in the intention world, which is we were we were walking around my friend and I were walking around the eco village, and it was quiet. It wasn't a lot of people there, and we saw these beautiful flowers. And we picked a flower, and we started walking towards one of the temples, and I went to smell it.
Mm,
And she's like, no, 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 offer it first.
mm,
And so it was like, I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And so it just was something like, it was not a bad thing, but it was like a lesson for me to see, like, oh, okay, right. I want to make sure, I want to offer it to Krishna first, because he is who I love. He's my top number one. And so I want him to smell it. I want him to enjoy it. And then I'll take whatever remnants is left, even if it's just the stem, right?
hmm.
So that was like and it wasn't done in malice. It was done in like kind of teaching me something. So it's just a little small story, but I think it's a nice little story just to remember, right? Like when whatever we're doing, we want to offer it to Krishna first, with our
Yes.
love and compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a perfect segue actually for the next point we want to talk about with this verse is, you could say, how does Krishna accept things if we don't see him? He doesn't need anything from us. He's not standing right in front of us, but we're offering him a flower. We're offering him s- what we cooked, some food. How is he actually accepting what we offer? Like, how does that even make sense? And in our tradition, we know that worshiping God through a deity form is not like symbolic or imaginary, but it is direct worship. Krishna is fully present and fully capable of reciprocating. And this is kind of the deity form. And when we hear that Krishna accepts an offering, it's also important to understand what that really means because Krishna isn't hungry the way that we are. Our hunger comes from bodily needs. But again, Krishna's hunger is completely transcendental. He's hungry for devotion, for love. And Krishna doesn't eat with a material mouth. Okay? Again, we have to understand all of his senses are interchangeable. So he can see with his ears, he can hear with his eyes, he can accept devotion without any material limitation. So what he's actually receiving is the devotion behind the offering. That's what this, when you have an altar or a sacred space, you maybe have pictures or a deity, and you offer to your deity, or the pictures. You know, this exchange becomes a loving reciprocal relationship. So you offer, Krishna's receiving the devotion behind the offering, and that's where and with that he takes the devotion behind the offering and he gives us mercy. The food, he takes the food as devotion and he returns to it to us as prashadam. It's no longer ordinary food. It's been spiritualized. It's been infused with God's mercy. And this is the reciprocation that takes place. The food might look the very same, but the consciousness is transformed. And it becomes this exchange of love. We offer devotion through food. Krishna accepts that devotion. Krishna returns mercy. So this loving exchange is the heart of bhakti. It's the heart of bhakti. And this process gives us as aspiring devotees a very personal way to connect with God. So by offering food with whatever devotion we honestly have right now, even if it feels small or imperfect, we enter into this relationship with him. And then over time, as we continue, the simple, practical service, Krishna gradually enriches the heart with deeper spiritual taste and genuine happiness. The act of offering it becomes nourishing, not just for God, but for us. Because as you think about it, you're cooking, you're thinking about God. Okay, what will God like? What would be nice to offer to him? What would be beautiful to offer to him? You're transforming just ordinary mundane things that you have to do every day to offerings for God. Your consciousness is transformed into this kind of mentality. You're not just doing it as a mundane chore or task, but you're doing it as a beautiful offering. And we know if the more that we serve our beloved, the more that we're thinking of our beloved, the more connected that we feel to our beloved. We experience this in our normal material relationships. It's not like I love changing diapers, but the more that I do it, the more that I feed my child, the more connected that I feel to her. That relationship builds. This is service is love. It's a manifestation of love. So the more that we're intentionally doing this throughout our day, I'm going to cook for Krishna. I'm going to see that flower. What flower would Krishna like for me to pick and offer? We're entering into relationship with God. And if you try this on, even if it sounds a little bit strange to you, if you try it on, what you'll find is that you'll see your heart transformed through this relationship because it's reciprocal. Krishna will see that devotion and he will reciprocate with his mercy. And you'll be in this loving relationship and it'll increase. Then you'll be thinking of him more. Then what's more, what can I offer? How can I have this hour a day? How can I offer that to God? Because you see how connected you feel in relationship. What do you think, Shakti?
So
Oh, is your hand still up or was that old?
no, it's not old.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to share this just little sweet moment. And and I had to ask George first because he was involved in this sweet moment. So I was downstairs yesterday. George was off, and I was like, oh, I want to change, Krishna, Radha. I want to change. I have Radha and Krishna, and I have Goda Nitai that I change that wear clothes and then I change and dress and then I have pictures as well. But those are the deities that I have that I'm caring for. And I was downstairs yesterday, and I was dressing, putting things on, and then George came down, and then he was dressing them with me, and so our little like we spent like an hour down there, and he's like, should this be like that? And he was like putting Radha's nose ring in. And he was putting Krishna's hat on. He's like, "What flute should we put? Which flute should he have?" And it was like this amazing burst of love, and like my heart was exploding. Like we were down there, and it's something that I do that I feel is so. It's so. It's not like secret, but it's like something that is so. What's the word? Like,
Sacred?
what?
Sacred?
Sacred, close to my heart. So I said to him afterwards, I said, "Did you feel like the connection, the love?" He goes, "Yeah, of course." And I was like, wow, like that was first, no, not the first time, not
Uh,
the first time, but I guess the first time that I was feeling it with him. And I didn't know if he felt it, but it's like, that is such a deep exchange of love and intent. Like I come out of there and I'm like, "Do you like that hat?" Like I'm
yeah.
like, "Your hat is a little crooked. Should I fix it?" Like it's this really great. It's really just so, I don't know how to. My heart was exploding, and it's
Yeah.
just another connection, I guess, another sacred
Yeah.
connection an intentional showing of like my love and my devotion to Krishna.
Yeah.
So, I shared it with George, which was like took it out of the park. So,
Yeah, and it sounds like George's heart was even touched, like he even felt some connection there.
oh
Oh,
yeah,
anytime I can help, right?
mm,
Um, Service, and it's just, it's not something that's like forced, right? Um, that just, you know, I know it's important to her as well. So especially with me, when we work full time, so you try and maximize like the days off, the even like this morning time. I mean, I'm off today too, so that's good. But if I have work, I try and maximize those moments of time, right,
mm,
that we can spend together, because if I'm at work, I'm gone for like 10, 11 hours, right?
yeah.
So
Now, George, you say together, but you've come on the podcast without Shakti before.
I have, yes.
So you must also be getting some kind of nourishment from this bhakti practice, even if Shakti's not here.
Oh, since the beginning, even like back in the wisdom of the sages and Raghunath, like I don't know, maybe it's at least a decade ago, right?
mhm.
Even before we came to Canada, and she started her journey. You know, um, I mean, by default, I'm a part of it. So,
Yeah,
um, you know, yeah, it's sort of the way of life, and the thought processes. And I mean, like I've said it before, you know, bhakti's comes from a place of kindness, and that's how I operate. So I mean, it's just natural, right?
yeah,
Even though I'm not, I grew up Catholic, and I mean, I don't practice anymore, but the things that I took from that were, with Jesus and how he treated people, right? And
those
it
are his
was
teachings. Yeah,
always
it's
about,
bhakti.
right? So I mean, it's the same.
Yeah,
You don't necessarily have to, follow a religion per se, but it's more mindset, and and how, at least for me, and for Shakti's, how do you treat people, right?
yeah.
If you come from a place of just genuine kindness and love, then that's it. That's the energy.
Mm.
Wow, spoken like a true bhakta.
Mm.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you both for sharing. Very inspiring. This practice can be so potent. And look out, because if you're doing these practices, you can't help but your heart be transformed, and and it's something about that becomes kind of addicting. You just keep coming back. And this concept of deities, for some people, it'd be very kind of foreign or weird. I know it was for me when I first got into this path. It seemed I was a little like unsure about how I felt about deities. But deities, if we think about deities like, we had the postal service, and every person has a mailbox outside, and that connects to the postal service. The mailboxes are like representatives for the postal service. And this is kind of what deities are for us. They allow us to connect with God through them. And in that, it becomes very powerful. I mean, Krishna's giving us direct access to him. And it can be a very powerful and purifying practice to the degree that you're open to it. And that has been my experience with deity worship. Thank you. Thank you. Should we move on to the next verse? Move on to the next verse, and then maybe we can have some reflections. That sound good? Okay. George and Shakti, your share really touched my heart. This is so wonderful. I love George's definition of bhakti. Okay, 27. When you're ready, Stella. Oh, can you read this, Stella? I think Stella might have dropped off the doctor. Does
Sorry,
any?
no, we're
Oh,
just pulling into the parking spot here at the doctor, so I don't
okay.
have my book.
Okay, no problem. Nancy, do you want to read the translation for us?
Yes, let Nancy read.
Or if you want to do this, try the Sanskrit too. Your choice. You
Sure,
can do.
I'll try the Sanskrit, okay?
Great. Yeah, yeah.
Yad karoshi yad ashnasi yaj jahoshi dad asid yat tapasyasi konteya tat kurushva mad apanamam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me.
Thank you. So this verse is a really nice kind of follow-up to verse to 26, where it was really kind of the golden standard and really kind of talking about the golden standard of love, where this path is aiming to take us, the top of the mountain, so to speak, as we referenced in our last class. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, he's saying, bring me into your life as you are now. So start with whatever you already do. And it's nice because he's not saying you have to be perfectly pure or you have to have some advanced level of devotion. He's just giving us this principle that the very act of offering is auspicious. Even if the offering isn't perfect, even if your mind is wandering, even if your devotion is mixed with other motives, like you love God, but you also want a little bit of, attention. You want a little bit of validation. Okay, do the service. Do the service. And the service in itself, just the effort, will connect you with Him and it will purify your heart. So just showing up, just from wherever you are, whatever you are. Even if you're cooking and your consciousness isn't there, you're taking care of your kids and they're driving you nuts and your consciousness is not very high. Okay, whatever you have, whatever you're doing, try and offer it to God. Make it as an offering. And this, again, the quality of reciprocation, it naturally deepens as our devotion deepens, because to the extent that we can offer from where we are, Krishna sees that. Krishna purifies us, and we become a little bit more sincere. And this is the process of bhakti. It's this gradual process of our consciousness, as our consciousness rising, growing. And no one is excluded from devotional life. Nobody has to wait until they're pure enough. And I like this breakdown. I saw this breakdown in one of Chaitanya Charan's books, and I really liked it. He talked about 3 stages of devotional growth. You can think of it like it's happening in 3 simple stages. So the first stage he called permeation. And I like this picture like a field after a gentle rain. The water slowly seeps through the topsoil. It begins to soften the earth. In the same way, Krishna enters into our hearts through his different manifestations, his names, the deity, the scriptures, devotees, association. And at this stage, our heart is still mostly filled with other attachments. It's just like a field is mostly dirt. But when we're open enough that Krishna can begin to permeate. So whatever we're doing, at least we're trying to offer it to him. The duty comes first, the devotion follows. So it's like, okay, I have this life, I have all these obligations, my life is completely full. Whatever I'm already doing, I'm just going to start offering to God. This is kind of like the first step. Because our heart is mostly full with material desires and attachments. No problem. Just let Krishna kind of permeate you, and do that by just offering where you already are. And then the second stage he called pervasion. So it's like as more and more water soaks into the field, that it just keeps raining, eventually the whole ground becomes saturated. And this is what happens in our hearts too. As Krishna gradually permeates our hearts, he begins to take a central place in our thoughts. So now we're thinking of Krishna. It's not like I'm going to do what I want to do and just offer it to Krishna. It's like we think before we even do. What would Krishna like? What would we think of Krishna first? How would Krishna like me to show up? What job would Krishna like me to take? We think of Krishna first. We start with remembering him. We offer our mind and intelligence to him, right? Like 805, I think. Okay, we offer our mind and intelligence first, and then we do our duties. So Krishna's becoming the primary consideration. This is where the ground starts to become more saturated. And then the final stage here is possession. When Krishna becomes everything, our whole purpose and anchor. You only care about his will, and you act according to that guidance. Whether it aligns with material duties or not, you are just married to God's will. And this we can think about like 1873, when Arjuna says, I will do your will. At this level, devotees don't just say, let thy will be done, like in a passive, surrendered way. They actively become instruments to carry out that will. This is like a fully empowered person, empowered because they allow themselves to be, because they have that desire to be that connected to God. They only want to carry out his will. So it's through these three phases, through these three stages, we can understand that this is such a gradual process. And we can also learn to temper our expectations that we're not just going to turn on the light and all of a sudden obtain love of God, because it's very high order. But we can see that it's meant to be a gradual process, and we can come to understand what these bhakti practices are really intended to do, which is to slowly bring us there. And we see how it does that through just simply by just permeating. Krishna just permeates into our days, into our routines, into our duties. It doesn't become compartmentalized like, oh, this is my spiritual time and this is my material life. No, we start to do our duty for God. And over time, we do our duty, we offer it to God. And then we start thinking about God even before we do our duty. What would God want me to do? And then over time, God becomes the center of our life in a way that we are married to his will. That's all that we want. We're completely kind of like intertwined in that. Whatever God wants, that's what I want. So we should understand, this is a process, and it's beautiful and it's meant to be. But don't lose sight of what's available for us, because it is available for us. And the Gita is trying to bring us to this core realization that we're not just bodies trying to get through life. That's kind of material consciousness. We're souls. We're children of God. And because of that, we're meant to experience a deeper kind of happiness. And this spiritual happiness is available for us. It comes when the heart becomes pure through service. So it's the goal and it's the process, this service. And it will purify us as we move forward. And just like we said, we don't have to reject the world to get there. We can just use everything we have right now, our time, our talents, our relationships, our money, our energy, as tools to serve Krishna. And to the degree that this is our desire, that we just want to use our time, our talents, our money, our energy to serve Krishna, Krishna will make arrangements in our lives to reflective of our degree of sincerity. He will reciprocate tenfold. So that's what this verse is telling us to do. Start from wherever you are. Take whatever you're already doing, whatever you already have, and consciously offer it to God. Your heart will become purified. You'll feel more connected to God, and you'll grow in your faith and in your relationship. And when you do that, an ordinary life becomes this path back to spiritual joy. And that's what Krishna wants for us. That's what he's trying to bring us into. And in the next verse, Krishna will explain what happens when we live this way. So how this simple habit of just offering everything back to him frees us from karmic reactions and just like accelerates our spiritual progress. So that's 28. We can either do one more verse or we can have some reflections and end here. Oh, good. Erin raised her hand. Let's start with some reflections and maybe we'll just end here. Erin, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I do think that like sometimes it seems so simple, right? Like the last verse. Um, and I sometimes find it like almost overwhelming in its simplicity of like, there's leaves everywhere. I mean, not this time of year, but generally speaking, I've never offered a leaf, or like, then feeling like this guilt of like all of these things that I don't do, right? Um, and this is, me just all my excuse making now too. Um, but I also just have a question of like, what does it really mean to offer? Like, I get what it means to offer like food or incense or something. Like, I can visualize that. I can I can see how that happens. But when people say to like offer a relationship or a problem or like, things that are much less tangible, like what does that mean,
Mm,
practically speaking, unless it's simply like a prayer of like offering something to God.
yeah.
Like aside from that, I really I don't know that I get it.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a great question. I love that question. It's such a Gita in action question. Thank you. Yeah, when we think about relationships, so often our mentality when we go into a relationship is, what can I get out of this relationship? How can this relationship serve me? How can this relationship add a little excitement to my life? How can this relationship make my life easier? How can this relationship increase my level of opulence and security? But when we're offering relationship to God, the consciousness becomes, how can this relationship increase my service to God? How can this relationship facilitate our relationship with God? And that's a relationship that serves God because God is at the center. So it becomes again a way, it's the same principle as other things. It may just not be so obvious to see, but when we approach a flower to pick it, to smell it, we're looking to enjoy that flower. I want to enjoy this flower. But when we pick a flower and we say, no, no, I'm not going to smell it, just like Shakti is talking about, I'm going to offer this to God first. That's a different level of consciousness. And we can have that same consciousness in our relationships. Instead of showing up in this self centered way, how can this relationship serve me? How can this relationship connect us to God? How can this relationship facilitate our service to God? So it's a different consciousness around even why you're seeking a relationship. Not for me, not so that I feel better, not so that I feel validated and get some pleasure, but so that we can serve God better and more sincerely together. Does that make sense?
It does. I just I just like I think I struggle with it and just want to like share that I can see how one would struggle with it because it's so radically different than like, I just think of like work relationships, and it's like, well, the norm is like to like network and like to um you know use people and to like seek, you know career advancement and promotion and whatever, like all of these things, like, so I just feel like over and over again, like all of these, lessons through bhakti are just like such a drastic reorientation from like how we were raised and how we grow up and like the society we currently live in, like, so not just the past but like also the present, and like George said, I also grew up Catholic, and it's just funny because in a way it's like, well, I used to only have to go to church on Sunday. It was like an hour. I checked that box and I was done for the week. And now I'm in this position where I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not thinking about like what would Krishna like to eat or like what would Krishna like to smell? And thinking like, oh, this like weight of like has like this weight of like responsibility and relationship towards God has like evolved and changed to like such a drastic level that it's like, yeah, it's just so radically different. And I I feel like I just keep wanting to like not feel guilty and like have grace for myself because like it is so different. It's so
Mm,
and it's beautiful and I love it and I wouldn't change it, right? Like ignorance is not actually bliss, even though sometimes it seems like it could be. But like, yeah, I just keep
mm,
being surprised to be like finding myself reminded over and over again, like how even though it seems so simple and so beautiful, it's like, wow, this really is so radically different.
mm. It's paradigm shifting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stella said something really beautiful on the chat that I want to acknowledge. She says, we still have needs within that, finding a balance where you are. And that can be kind of, the tricky part. Like we want to make efforts, but then we also, like she said, we still honor where we are. I remember the last class I shared a story about my husband, how I gave him a gift and I didn't feel like a reciprocation from him in the way that he was like appreciative of it. And Anuradha, one of my really good friends, was like telling me as I was kind of venting to her, she's like, I just want to shake you. She's like, this is an opportunity for you to love without expectation. And I was like, yes, okay, you're right. This is an opportunity for me to love without expectation. That doesn't mean that I turn off my needs, but that means that I try this on. I try this on. It's just loving without expectation. And what I saw when I kind of shifted into that consciousness is that I see that my husband shows up more. So these relationships can be a container for this too. And this brings us closer to God. We practice these things. We practice how to love selflessly. And we see that when we do that, our needs are actually met. And that's what we're trying to learn here. And in the process, we can't ignore our needs, but we try to take some steps closer to trying on some of these principles so that we can realize that our needs are actually met. And Krishna will reveal that to us as we move forward. And sometimes you still have to have the conversation like, hey, this, like the real, we can't ignore our needs. Sometimes we have to have conversations around our needs. But this is just, again, encouraging us to stretch and to grow in that. Yeah. And you said, how do we offer a problem to God? Offering a problem to God, again, it's not, oh, this is a problem. How do I solve this so that I can get what I want? It's, this is coming up in my life. What is Krishna trying to reveal to me through this problem? And let me be open so that I can be open to that, to that revelation. So it's just a shift in consciousness, the way that we see things, the way that we approach things. Oh, look at this problem. Such an obstacle in my life. It's really screwing things up for me. To wow, Krishna's bringing this up. What could he be trying to reveal to me? Let me stay open, and let me pull in closer to him so that I can be a better instrument for his love. Thank you, Aaron, for that vulnerable and real share. Katie.
Hi, Krishna. Um, oh my goodness. This is so rich, and I just so appreciate everyone's contributions. Um, and Kay just wrote in the chat the 3 stages, which I was thinking about with my speaking about my sister recently and her alcoholism um and also Aaron, I was thinking like, this is kind of embarrassing because why haven't I already like realized this? But so in terms of that, it's like we get these reminders over and over that Krishna's like right where you are is perfect, and it can take time to feel that. But anyway, I was thinking how like, yeah, I mean, but back in for the beginning of the class, maybe I can start to realize like I don't need as much from my sister as I
Mm,
did or thought I did, and have that pressure that she needs to show up in some way that I expect.
mm,
and I can love her fully anyway, and still maintain some boundaries that like make sure treatment is there of myself. But just keep trying to realize what is real about our relationship. It's making me emotional, and then make that the service, and really showing up for people, and that is the offering, and enlisting Krishna's help by like remembering him more and more throughout it. And then the final piece, that part was like, realizing that's just what he wants. That's just what he wants, and like you said, that's going to just come back tenfold in his mercy. Yeah, so I just thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to work and could park and share. Yeah, thanks so much.
I'm so glad too. Thank you, Katie. What a beautiful realization. And I'm right there with you with my dad and his alcoholism. He's has to make some pretty tough decisions whether he's going to continue and basically die or not. And just for me, learning how to be there for him in that moment and be there for myself and love him without expectation while maintaining the boundary. I'm totally with you. I feel everything you're saying, and thank you so much for the beautiful share.
Very cool.
Very cool. Is there anything, Nancy, did you want to share anything before we end for the day?
Well, I'm just going to say, seeing how I'm an alcoholic in recovery, been sober for 43 years, but what I would offer is, as I've offered other people, is that, Krishna, I offer this alcoholic to you. Please wrap your arms around them. And that's the best prayer that I can offer when it comes to the confusion of the person that's suffering, because we have no idea what their needs are, but we do know what our needs are, is to also have Krishna wrap their arms around us. But that offering, as we've talked about, offering can be very, very powerful, because my son went into his addiction, and I was being torn up incredibly, because he knew. He was raised in a very sober environment, and yet it still happens. And so, Krishna, I offer Sam to you. Please wrap your arms around him, and I still feel that way about people. And anytime anybody wants to reach out to me to talk about this disease of alcoholism, family disease, I'm here for you guys. So thank you so much. And I kept on thinking when everyone was sharing, it's like, I got to take myself out of the center. My world has been so me-centered, and now I have to offer my world to Krishna, rather than expecting the world to offer them itself to me. So thanks so much for letting me be here. And I'm sorry I can't come on Mondays, because I have another commitment with a sponsee that I do, but I'll try to come on Thursdays. So thank you.
Wow. Beautiful. That was that was so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with all of us, Nancy. And I think that's just a perfect way to end class today. And that's going to be my intention going into next week. I'm going home to see my dad. That will be my prayer and my intention. Let Krishna wrap his arms around him and also me. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you all. I'll see you all on Monday. Thanks for sharing your energy and your hearts, and let's keep walking each other home. Thank you all.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.